The goodbye that saved a family emotional story. He stood alone in the pouring rain, watching the lights in the apartment flicker on one by one. Behind those walls, laughter echoed, muffled by glass. The kind of laughter that once belonged to him. But tonight, he wasn't part of it. Not anymore. To the world, he looked like a drifter, unshaven, soaked, forgotten. People passed him by with tightened grips on their umbrellas and quick glances of pity or disgust. Some whispered. Others scoffed. Another failure, someone muttered. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew that the man they mocked once owned the building they lived in. None of them knew he'd walked away from a fortune, not because he lost it, but because he chose to. Years earlier, he had everything. Not just wealth. Influence. He was the architect behind a string of boutique hotels across the country, praised in magazines, courted by investors. His rise was swift. Too swift. While contracts piled up, so did the distance between him and the only people who truly mattered, his wife and 2 young children. He missed birthdays. Then school plays. Then dinners turned into silent arguments over phone calls he never took. His family didn't ask for a palace, just his presence. But he didn't hear them. Or maybe he did, and chose not to listen. Until the night, he came home to a quiet apartment and a note on the fridge. Asterisk, we're not leaving because we don't love you. We're leaving because you don't love yourself anymore. Asterisk. It shattered something in him. But instead of chasing them, he vanished. People assumed he spiraled. The media said he'd gone bankrupt. Rivals laughed. Some claimed he'd been institutionalized. Others said he left the country. But the truth was far more complicated and far more deliberate. He gave everything away. The penthouse. The cars. The brand. He signed over the company to a silent partner he once mentored, then disappeared into the background. He took nothing except a duffel bag and a journal filled with memories. For the first time, he wasn't chasing deals. He was chasing answers. For a year, he lived on the streets. By choice. He watched people, families clinging to each other with nothing but hope. Single mothers feeding kids before themselves. Elderly men sleeping with their backs to the wind so their dogs could stay warm. And slowly, painfully, he began to see the world he'd missed. The people he'd ignored. And himself. At a rundown shelter in the heart of the city, he started volunteering under a fake name. No one knew his past. No one cared. He scrubbed floors, served meals, and handed out blankets. But behind every act of service, he wrote, observed, learned. One night, while cleaning the dining hall, he overheard a teenager arguing with his father. A familiar fight, about dreams, about disappointment, about not being seen. It struck him hard. He watched the boy storm out, yelling, "You never listen. You just work and expect me to be grateful." That night, the man wrote a letter. It wasn't addressed to anyone. Just a story. About a man who had everything and lost it. About a family that slipped through his fingers. About how sometimes walking away is the most painful kind of love. He slipped the letter into a backpack filled with supplies and gave it to the boy the next day, without a word. A month later, that boy came back with his father. They said the letter saved their relationship. Word spread. Slowly at first. People began requesting more letters. He started writing goodbye notes, for those trying to leave abusive homes, for those saying goodbye to addiction, for those releasing grief. He called them goodbyes that begin again. They went viral. Podcasters featured him. A popular motivational channel dubbed him the Anonymous Healer. No one knew who he was until one night, a woman appeared at the shelter with 2 teenagers beside her. Her eyes met his, and the world stopped. She didn't say a word. Neither did he. The children stepped forward. "Are you the one who writes the letters?" He nodded. And then the youngest said something that broke him completely. "Did you write one for us too?" He handed them an envelope. Inside was the original note from the fridge, and a reply, dated the same night they left. In it, he wrote not just his regrets, but the lessons he'd learned in the silence. The apology wasn't poetic. It was real. Broken. honest. Tears flowed freely. There was no dramatic reunion, no promises, just quiet understanding. But something changed that night. The man never returned to his old name. He stayed at the shelter, kept writing. But now his family visited every week, not to rebuild the past, but to build something new. And the building where they once lived? It became a transitional home for families starting over. The deed? Signed over in secret. Because sometimes the most powerful love is the kind that lets go. The kind that says goodbye, not to abandon, but to protect. Asterisk, asterisk. That goodbye saved a family. And maybe, if you're reading this, it's not too late for yours.